Leprosy is still, in this 21st century, a mystery disease. I don't think there's enough information, and that's why people tend to discriminate, like your father's friend there. It's still the same. What is being done? Are there any scientific discoveries about leprosy that the world can know about so that we don't have this discrimination?
Well, there are many, many issues that violate human rights in the world today. And those have really surfaced as major issues that we must all be responsible for and tackle. But nevertheless, people discriminating against other people still exists in the world on a daily basis. And I feel it's really the fault of society, as well as each and every one of us. We can't really discriminate against people. I think this is the biggest fault of our society. I think you're right to say that if the right explanations, the right information were given to people, there would be greater understanding towards this disease, leprosy. But of course, I have visited your country, Indonesia, as well. And there I met an old lady who was living alone. And I asked her, "Can you not go back home?" And she said no. The family had already disowned her. And if she went back now, of course, her family would face stigma and discrimination. And therefore, there was nothing for her to do but go on living alone. In Japan, too, of course, families of affected people do not accept them back. I met somebody who said, if I was to go home to my family, to my homeland, I would have to die. I would have to be cremated. I would have to be smoke and ashes before I could go home. So this is still the sad reality of today. Well, of course, today leprosy is curable. And with early detection means your hands will not be deformed, like in the olden days. And of course, all over the world, medicine is available free of charge. And therefore, I feel that with all this development in today's world, I feel these tragedies are now dramatically less. Of course, from the 1980s, I have been able to cure 16 million patients from this disease. But as you said, although they have been medically cured, they still face discrimination, and they're not accepted back into society. For example, in India, a lot of leprosy-affected persons must beg to earn their daily bread. And this is very unfortunate, and this should not happen in today's world. But I think all of this comes from incorrect information about leprosy in the olden days, when it was thought to be a religious punishment, a religious discrimination. But I feel that out of hundreds and thousands of diseases that confront mankind, there is no other disease where the family disowns the patient. Normally, if you become ill, they support you and really help you. And I feel that even in this contemporary world, there is still this leprosy, where families still disown and remove themselves from the patient. I myself have taken two approaches to solving this issue, and one is to appeal to the international organizations. Specifically, I've approached the United Nations Human Rights Council, and the Japanese government has also now decided to put this latest issue of leprosy and human rights violations as an official agenda on the table at the Human Rights Commission. Ultimately, I would like to see this going through the United Nations Assembly's resolution. And by that, I do hope that each of the member states will be able to come up with guidelines of their own country to disseminate the correct information about leprosy, and also to educate the people about leprosy and for each company to have a certain ratio of their employees be disabled people. And I'm really looking forward to the United Nations General Assembly resolutions that will lead to this sort of guideline. And I'm sure that this is one of the major issues that I still have to put in a lot of effort to try for the success of this approach. Now, the second approach that I'm taking is really appealing to the leprosy-affected people who have recovered from the disease themselves. I feel they have been sent away from their homes, from the cities, and therefore have to live quietly in the deserts, in the valleys, where nobody else finds it pleasant to live. But they did that because if they were to speak out, once again, they would be met with more stigma and discrimination. So they feel they must live quietly in the corners of the world. So I have now decided that I must really have them come out and organize themselves into institutions and organizations. I told them that you are the major players in this. You are the people that must stand out and speak out. And therefore, it's from the grassroots that I am organizing the patients that have recovered from the disease to be able to educate the whole world through their voices and their activities, and to disseminate the correct information. Of course, when you start to say things like this, a lot of people have said that that is impossible, and other people criticize and make all sorts of comments about my activities. But I feel we need to act if we want to achieve something. In today's society, there are many critics that talk about or criticize what other people are doing. So therefore, I feel that to take action is the first step to success. And I firmly believe I can succeed. Now, the other day, I had an interview with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I said to him, "You know, I'm going to work to alleviate the beggars from India." And he said, "Mr. Sasakawa, that is very difficult, but work hard, and I hope you succeed." So even His Holiness doesn't believe it can be achieved, but I am committed. As long as I am involved in this work, I will free India of beggars while His Holiness is still alive.
The World Health Organization has named you Goodwill Ambassador for the elimination of leprosy. So this means that you have to travel around the world and tell people that leprosy is not a really bad disease and not to discriminate and all that you've been saying. Is that what you do when you, as Goodwill Ambassador?
To be honest with you, I really don't like the name Goodwill Ambassador, because there are tons of Goodwill Ambassadors in our society today, and these Goodwill Ambassadors really come out to different events to educate the people, and they feel it is effective. But the battle for the elimination of leprosy is not like that. We have to go to the remotest areas, let's say, of Africa or India. We have to really be in the field, on the front line of where the battle must take place. And also, you must appeal to the top leaders of each country. You must also appeal to the ministries of health of different countries. And it's only then, with their involvement, that we will be able to achieve success. Of course, it is very difficult and time-consuming. I have, for example, been to a country in Africa 4 times in a year. And when it comes to India, I have been there more than 20 times over the past 3 years. What we need to do is make the leaders of these countries feel the importance of this issue and put the issue of leprosy and discrimination and violation of human rights as their top priority. Unless we do that, we will not be able to solve this whole issue. So I will continue. It is not a battle that has a loud voice, like a lot of activities, but my way of doing things is very quiet, with patience, and also continuous efforts, until all the people understand what it is to discriminate against people with leprosy and stand up to act to solve this issue in their own country.
I think a more appropriate word to describe you than Goodwill Ambassador is quiet crusader.
Well, maybe we should not be using the word crusaders, because aren't they really Muslim people? I don't know if it's the right word.
No, I think crusader is, is a fighter. It really goes beyond religion, and I think what you're doing is just stupendous. Very few people think about leprosy, as you rightly mentioned, as a priority, and yet people are suffering.